All right. Hello, everyone. My name is UJ, and welcome to Family Cycle, where we talk about everything revolving around the family. And so we talk fertility, parenting, food, children, finances, what have you. And so I'm continuing with the fertility series because it's one thing I live and breathe. You can't speak with me, without me chipping that in. It just comes, and people are always like, wow, and so one of the things, I want to do with this is so that people can have access to the information readily, because I realize that every week I spend some good hours supporting people, and so this will be a source of information for people who need it. Now, today I'll be talking about IVF treatment, right? And I will be talking about IVF treatment in Nigeria, in the UK, and possibly India, because I have experience in these places. Things you want to consider, right? So when I started my IVF treatment, I started in Nigeria, and pretty much the same thing. It's the same thing everywhere all over the world. The fact that you use the almost the same kind of medication, you need to do your test, your blood works, so there are a lot of things that you need to consider. Now, when a pregnancy needs to happen, especially on the woman's side or even with the man's side, when a pregnancy needs to happen, there are things you need to consider, which is the egg, the womb, the hormones, and this time around the sperm, because now we're talking about IVF. And so I've had a lot of people come to me and they're like, oh EJ, which is the best for them to go through, especially if they hear that I went to India for my own treatment and things like that. So I find a lot of people living in the UK calling me, is it better for them to do it in the UK or should they travel to Nigeria? By the way, I'm Nigerian, and so I have a lot of Nigerians asking that question. And so these are some of the things I always highlight for people. Now, cost is an issue. Cost is an issue you want to consider. In the UK, on the average, IVF will cost you maybe between £7,000 to £10,000, depending on the hospital, depending on the treatments that they would need to do and things like that. However, in a place like Nigeria, it will probably cost you maybe a quarter or less of that. India, if you're going from the UK, say you're changing pounds, it will probably cost you maybe 1/3 of that amount as well, right? But of course, if you're going from Nigeria, I don't advise people to go to India from Nigeria anymore, because by the time you change Naira, and things have changed, a lot of doctors have now evolved, and so they've been able to up their games and they're able to also offer the same quality of treatments that you get in Nigeria, in India, or even abroad. Now, also, when you find yourself in that journey, chances are that things might not go the way you expect it to go. One of which is, it might be that maybe the sperm quality is not good, or maybe the egg quality, or even the womb lining. Now, if any of this happens, you might need a third person, to be an intermediary. So you might need like a sperm donor, or you need an egg donor, or a surrogate mother. Now, if any of this needs to happen, you need to consider the impact. If it's a sperm donor, so if you have to use a sperm donor, maybe in Europe, let's just say Europe in general, or Asia, some of the things you need to consider is our genetics. Now, when you see an Asian, the person is Asian because of the way they look. If you see someone who is Caucasian, the person is Caucasian because of the way they look. And so if you need a donor sperm, the cheapest and the most readily available will be the sperm from the people around there, same as the egg. It's not like you won't find like maybe African eggs or whatever, or Caucasian egg in India. You would find, however, they come very expensive, because when we say egg, it's not chicken eggs, right? So Every woman is born with her egg when she's born, but by the time she's a teenager, she's probably lost like half of that. And every time she has a period, she is shedding her eggs. And so the period a woman has is her eggs. When she doesn't get pregnant, she sheds it as egg. And so in the journey of fertility, when women get to a level where they need donor eggs, the doctors have to work with younger ladies who are still very strong and have quality eggs. Now, some things affect the quality of your egg, which is your age, lifestyle, but most importantly, age really, and lifestyle. There are people who are young and their egg quality is really not good, and there are people who are old and they have good egg quality. I've seen all this. And so, one person's situation is never the same as another person. In the fertility journey, there is no one size fits all. And so please don't judge another person's journey, as yours. Your results might never always be the same thing. And so if you're on this journey and you find that you need to use a donor egg, the doctors would have to work with the most available people, because for somebody to be a donor, they need to take injections for a period of time, and they also need to go under a surgery for the eggs to be removed, and that's why it's usually expensive, and all this needs to be factored in. And so these days, when people ask me, oh UJ, which is better, I simply just say, these are the things you need to consider. Do you have the money to try for the first? And if it doesn't go, do you still have another money to try for the second? Let's assume you want to do that in the UK. Do you have £7,000 to spend and maybe nothing happens? Do you have another 7,000 to do it again? However, if you go to maybe India, you might just have to spend maybe like 3,000, for a cycle, or you might go to Nigeria and maybe you're spending maybe 1,000 plus 2,000 for a cycle, So these are the odds. Then also, if somewhere along the line you need donor, can you readily afford donors? Can you readily afford donor sperm? Let's say maybe you want African donor in India or African donor in Europe. Would they be readily available for that? If they're very expensive, can you afford it? So it boils down to availability and affordability, right? So in comparing these two places, you have to bear this in mind. Also, by the time you finished your treatment, you need some level of support. I always tell people, one of the things that helped me to have 2 successful IVF within a year was because of the knowledge I had. In India, they tell you to rest your back. However, in the Western world, you're told to go about your life the way it is. And I know that sometimes you have no option, but I think resting your back works. It worked for me. It really worked for me, and it worked for a lot of people, which is one of the reasons why, there was loads of successes. So you want to be around people who can support you. Like say in Africa, you have someone who can cook for you. One of the things you're told not to do is cook. Don't go close to fire. I know in the Western world they might tell you, but I'm telling you how it was for us anyway. So they tell you to avoid heat around your belly, rest your back. I went extreme. So with my 2 weeks waiting period, I was lying mostly on my back. So when you do IVF, if you've watched my other video, I did share that when you do IVF or any fertility treatment, really, be IUI or anyone, there is 2 weeks waiting period. And in the 2 weeks waiting period, they start counting from your last period, because really every fertility treatment starts with your last period. And so during your 2 weeks waiting period, you are encouraged to settle your back, rest as much as possible so that the embryo can settle in, because really an embryo is made up of sperm and egg. So when a sperm and egg mixes, they become an embryo. And when the embryo is formed, in the process of your transfer, there is something called there is the 3 days embryo and there is the 5 days one. The 5 days one is called blastocyst, which is already showing that it's coming out of the shell, and that's part of the placenta coming out already. That tends to actually have more success. So if you find yourself going towards that treatment, there are people who have had the 3 days embryos transferred, and they did really well. And but from research, the 5 days one is like rolling already, and so the chances are usually higher. Also, IVF is a game of numbers. So in the UK, it's heavily regulated. In the UK, if you're less than 40, you're most likely going to have only one embryo transfer. However, if you are above 40, they might take the risk and transfer two. Chances are that it can split and become maybe identical twins. What if those two split and become triplets? That's 6 babies, so that's how they calculate this thing. Plus, NHS is free, and so the UK is very, very strict on transfer. And also, IVF is a game of numbers. Now, if one embryo is transferred, chances are that you might just get maybe the success rate might be maybe about 15%. However, if 2 are transferred, it rises to about 25%. If 3 are transferred, it rises to about 35%. So what it means is that if 1 doesn't implant, 2, 3 can. If 3 doesn't, 1, 2 can. Do you understand that kind of a thing? So it's more of permutation, and that's how it works. So it's a game of numbers. It's also one of the reasons why there's been a lot of successes, when people go out of the UK, so it's not really, really regulated. You find people having triplets just because, more embryos were transferred. And so, these are the things you want to consider. Also, if you're in the UK and you think you need to travel, I speak from experience. I'm not a medical practitioner. This was my journey. I had to travel. Some of the things I tell people is that you might need to work with your doctor. I was working with my GP here in the UK. And so what was I doing? Whatever test I needed to do, I would do it. Of course, your cycle will be regulated, kind of. So you know when to expect it. You stop the medication, and 2-3 days thereabout, the period will come. And so if you are somebody who lives in the UK or America or something, and you're looking to go to Nigeria for IVF treatment, one of the things you can do is go and come back, right? For me, when I needed to go to India, I was not allowed to stay out of the UK for a certain period. If not, I would lose my right to my permanent residency and things like that. So I was going and coming. And when I know that the period is coming, I get to travel, and there's also a follicle stimulating test that needs to be done at a certain day as well. And so I try to make sure I'm there. I think it's on the 5th day of the period. I try to make sure I'm there, for that test. So you need to work with your doctor. It's very, very possible you can travel to Nigeria. If you have the money, by all means, please do it in America, where you have your job, where your job is secure and things like that. But if you can't afford it, I'm also giving you these options of how to travel to Africa or to another country or somewhere else to go and do it. So if you have to, what you can do is work with your doctor, know the days that you need to be there, make sure that you're counting the cycles the way you need to, and ensure you need to be there, because the cycles need to work with certain dates of your cycle. So normal period that you'll be told is maybe 21 days cycle. There are days in between that your doctor needs to work with, and so you need to understand those days. And I'm hoping that this has really helped anyone who is still struggling with if to go for IVF back home or any other country where they are living. If you find this useful, please share with your friends who are probably going through the same thing, which is why I felt I shouldn't be on the call with people every other week. I felt that okay, I was also encouraged that put this there where people can always reach it. And so this is my point, for and against UK, America, or Nigeria, or any other country. The finances, availability of eggs, sperm, the support system that you can get, and also the laws guiding it. The laws guiding it. I hope this has been helpful. See you later. Have a great day. Bye.